Admiral Blake stood at the massive window of Orbital Station 7, watching the blue and green world of New Terra spin slowly below. 6,000 years. That's how long the galaxy had known peace. 6,000 years since the last shot was fired, in anger, since the last ship exploded in the cold darkness of space. He was old enough to remember his grandfather's stories about the ancient wars. Tales that seemed like fairy tales now. Stories of humans fighting against alien empires, of desperate battles among the stars. But those were just stories. The real galaxy was peaceful. Safe. Boring, if Blake was honest with himself. "Sir, morning. Report," said Lieutenant Davis, walking up with a datapad. She was young, maybe 25, born long after anyone had forgotten what real danger looked like. Her uniform was perfect, her smile bright. Like everyone else, she saw the defense station as an easy job. A place where nothing ever happened. "Any problems?" Blake asked, not really expecting any. "Same as always, sir. Trade ships coming and going. Some mining vessels heading to the outer asteroids. The Galactic Council sent another peaceful greeting to the Edge colonies." Davis paused. "Oh, and Captain Ross is asking about the weapon systems again." Blake smiled. Ross had been after him for months to upgrade their ancient defense systems. The man actually believed they might need to fight someone someday. Most people thought Ross was crazy. Blake wasn't so sure. "Tell Ross we'll discuss it next week," Blake said. Again. The peaceful years had been good for humanity. They had joined the Galactic Coalition as junior members, learning from older species who had figured out how to live without war. The 17 species of the Coalition had built something beautiful together. Trade, science, art, philosophy. War was a thing of the past. But Blake kept thinking about his grandfather's words. "Peace doesn't last forever, boy. Something always comes along to break it." Deep in the station's communication center, Operator Wells was having a normal day. She monitored the deep space sensors, watching for anything unusual. Mostly she saw empty space, sometimes a lost asteroid, once a comet that had drifted off course. Nothing exciting ever happened on the edge of known space. That's why she almost ignored the reading at first. A small blip on her screen, so far out it was barely visible. Probably another space rock. She marked it for later study and went back to her book. The Coalition had given humanity access to thousands of years of literature from across the galaxy. She was reading a love story from the peaceful bird people of Kepler Prime. 20 minutes later, the blip was bigger. Wells frowned and ran the scan again. The object was moving. Fast. Towards them. She checked the readings twice, then 3 times. Ships this far out should be broadcasting identity signals. This one wasn't. "Computer, identify unknown contact," she said, unable to identify. "Object, shows no known design patterns." Wells felt something cold in her stomach. She called her supervisor. "Sir, I have an unknown contact on the deep sensors. It's big and moving towards Coalition space." Supervisor Martinez had worked the communication center for 15 years. He had never seen anything that couldn't be explained. "Probably a lost cargo ship. Send them the standard greeting." Wells transmitted the Coalition's standard message. "Unknown vessel. Please identify yourself and state your business in Coalition. Space." No response. "Send it again," Martinez said. Still nothing. "Sir," Wells said, her voice getting higher. "The contact is getting bigger. A lot bigger." Martinez looked at her screen and felt his blood turn to ice. The unknown object wasn't just big, it was huge. Bigger than any ship in the Coalition fleet, and it was still growing on the sensors, which meant more contacts were appearing behind it. "Get Admiral Blake down here," Martinez said. "Right now." Blake arrived 5 minutes later, still carrying his morning coffee. He looked at the sensor display and set the cup down very carefully. "How many?" he asked. "We count. 50 contacts so far, sir," Wells said. "Maybe more. They're still coming out of deep space. Have they responded to our signals?" "No, sir." "Nothing." Blake stared at the screen. In 6,000 years of peace, no one had seen anything like this. Unknown ships, traveling in formation, refusing to communicate. His grandfather's voice whispered, in his memory, "Something always comes along to break it." "Send a message to Earth," Blake said. "Priority 1. Tell them we have unknown contacts approaching Coalition space." "Sir," Wells said, "there's something else. The energy readings from those ships, they don't match anything in our database." Blake felt the weight of history settling on his shoulders. He had always known this day might come. The peaceful species of the galaxy had forgotten how to fight, but Blake had studied the old records. He knew what war looked like. "Get Captain Ross up here," he said, "and wake up the night shift. I want all our people on duty." "Sir, should we alert the other Coalition worlds?" Blake looked at the growing formation of unknown ships on the screen. They were still hours away, but they were coming fast. Too fast for normal engines. "Send the alert," he said. Tell them the peace is over." Across the galaxy on 17 different worlds, beings who had never known war received the same message. Most didn't believe it at first. War was impossible. The galaxy was civilized now. Peaceful. Safe. On the water world of Aquarius, the fish-like people called an emergency council meeting. They had no weapons, no soldiers, no idea what to do. Their ships were built for exploration and trade, not fighting. On the desert world of Prima, the rock people who lived for thousands of years tried to remember the ancient stories of battle. But the stories were just myths now. No one alive had ever seen real violence. The plant people of Garden World didn't even understand the concept of war. They lived in harmony with everything around them. How could anyone want to hurt another living being? Only humanity seemed to grasp what was happening. On Earth, in the deep archives under the old United Nations building, Director Kane received Blake's message and felt her hands shake. She knew what was coming. Humanity had been peaceful for 6,000 years, but they remembered their violent past better than most. Kane walked to a secure elevator that few people knew existed. She descended into the Earth, past levels of security that hadn't been activated in millennia. At the bottom, behind doors that required her genetic code to open, waited humanity's deepest secret. But that was still hours away. On Orbital Station 7, Blake watched the unknown fleet grow larger on his sensors. Wells had counted over 100 ships now, all moving in perfect formation toward Coalition space. "Sir," said Captain Ross, arriving on the command deck. "What's our situation?" Blake pointed at the screen. "We're about to find out if those weapon upgrades you wanted were necessary." Ross looked at the display and whistled low. "That's a lot of ships. Any idea who they might be?" "None of the Coalition species build ships like that," Ross said. "These are built for war. You can tell by the design. Heavy armor, weapon ports, shielding systems. Whoever built these has been planning to fight someone. The question is who," Blake said. They got their answer an hour later when the first Coalition ship died. The cargo vessel, Peaceful Dawn, was carrying art supplies from Earth to the outer colonies. Captain Murphy had been making the same run for 20 years. He was thinking about his retirement when his ship's sensors picked up the massive fleet. "Unknown vessels, this is Captain Murphy of the Coalition ship Peaceful Dawn," he broadcast. "You're entering restricted space. Please, identify yourselves." The response came in the form of a green energy beam that cut his ship in half. Murphy had just enough time to send one last message before his ship exploded. "They're attacking. The unknown ships are attacking Coalition vessels. They're killing everyone." On Orbital Station 7, Blake heard Murphy's final transmission and felt something die inside him. The long peace was over. After 6,000 years, war had returned to the galaxy. "Battle stations," he ordered. "All hands to battle stations." Lieutenant Davis looked confused. "Sir, what's battle stations?" Blake realized that most of his crew had never heard the term. They had no idea what it meant. In 6,000 years of peace, humanity had almost forgotten how to fight. Almost. "It means we're about to go to war," Blake said, "and God help us all." Director Kane stood in the elevator as it descended deeper into the Earth than most humans had ever gone. Each floor that passed brought back memories she had tried to forget. memories of humanity's violent past before they joined the peaceful galaxy above. The elevator stopped at level 12. Kane had only been this deep once before during her security briefing 20 years ago. Back then, she hoped she would never need to come here again. The doors opened with a soft hiss, revealing a corridor that had been sealed for 6,000 years. "Director Kane," said the computer voice. "Please state your authorization code." "Protocol 7, Kane said, her voice steady despite her fear. "The long peace is over." Red lights flashed along the corridor as ancient systems came online. Kane walked forward, passing through security scanners that read her DNA, her heartbeat, even her thoughts. The hallway was clean and white, but she could feel the weight of history pressing down on her. Above ground, the galaxy was falling apart. Reports came in every hour of Coalition ships being destroyed by the unknown fleet. The peaceful species had tried everything: diplomatic messages, offers of trade, even surrender. Nothing worked. The attackers didn't want to talk. They wanted to destroy. Kane reached the final door and placed her hand on the scanner. The lock had been designed to need 3 approvals, 1 from humanity and 2 from other Coalition species. But desperate times called for desperate measures. Messages had already been sent to the bird people of Kepler Prime and the rock people of Prima. Both species had agreed to unlock humanity's secret weapon. The massive door slid open, revealing a room that humanity had hoped never to use again. Thousands of metal pods filled the space, arranged in perfect rows like a mechanical graveyard. Each pod was 7 feet long and sealed tight. Frost covered their surfaces, and red lights blinked slowly in the darkness. Kane walked between the rows, reading the names on small metal plates. Captain Mills, Enhanced Infantry Unit 1, Sergeant Cross, Special Operations Division, Lieutenant Hunt, Psychological Warfare Specialist, Corporal Stone, Heavy Assault Squad. The Bohr names went on and on. 1,000 sleeping soldiers from humanity's darkest period. The time before peace, when humans had been very good at one thing: war. Kane stopped at a control panel in the center of the room. Her hands shook as she entered. The activation codes. These soldiers had volunteered for something terrible. They had let human scientists change them, make them into something more than human, and something less. "Computer, begin revival sequence," she said. "Warning," the computer replied. "Enhanced soldiers have been in stasis for 6,000 years. Full psychological evaluation recommended before deployment." "We don't have time," Kane said. "The galaxy is under attack. Begin revival now." "Acknowledged." Revival sequence initiated. Steam hissed from the pods as their systems came online. Kane watched the temperature readings climb from far below, freezing to normal human levels. But these weren't normal humans anymore. The scientists who made them had pushed human evolution forward by thousands of years in just a few decades. The first pod opened with a soft click. Captain Mills sat up slowly, his movements smooth and controlled. His eyes opened and Kane saw something that made her step back. His eyes weren't completely human anymore. They moved too fast, saw too much, calculated too quickly. "Status report," Mills said, his voice calm and cold. "You've been asleep for 6,000 years, Kane said. The galaxy is at peace. Was at peace. We're under attack by an unknown enemy." Mills stood up, his body moving with predatory grace. He was tall and lean, but Kane could see the modifications under his skin. Enhanced muscles, reinforced bones, organs that could function in ways normal humans couldn't imagine. 6,000 years, Mills repeated, processing the information. "The war? Ended long ago. Humanity joined the Galactic Coalition. We've been peaceful." Mills looked around the room as more pods opened. His enhanced soldiers were waking up, stretching muscles that had been frozen for millennia. Kane watched them with growing fear. These weren't the same humans who had gone to sleep. The modifications had changed them into something else. "Peaceful," Mills said, as if the word was foreign to him. "And now? Now we need you to remember how to fight." Sergeant Cross was the next to speak. She was smaller than Mills but moved with the same dangerous grace. Her modifications were different. built for speed and stealth rather than direct combat. Enemy strength? Cross asked. Over 500 ships, maybe more, Kane said. They've destroyed dozens of Coalition vessels. Our peaceful fleets can't stop them. Coalition species capabilities? Kane almost laughed, but there was nothing funny about it. They don't have any. None of them remember how to fight. We're the only species with any military experience, and that was 6,000 years ago. Lieutenant Hunt joined the conversation. Her modifications were subtle. Enhanced brain, functions that let her understand enemy psychology and predict their actions. She had been created to break enemy morale and turn their own minds against them. Show us the enemy, Hunt said. Kane activated a wall screen and showed them recordings of the attacking ships. The enhanced soldiers watched in silence, their modified minds processing information faster than normal humans could think. Kane could almost see them calculating angles, speeds, weapon capabilities, and tactical options. Biomechanical design, Mills observed. Living ships, adaptive armor. They learn from each encounter. Hive mind structure, Hunt added. Centralized, command. If we can find their queen or central intelligence, we cut off the head, the body dies. Cross finished. Kane felt a chill. These soldiers thought about war like normal people thought about breathing. Natural, automatic, necessary. What are our resources? Mills asked. The Coalition has exploration ships, some cargo vessels with light weapons. Nothing built for real fighting. Human ships? We have some defensive platforms, patrol vessels. Nothing like what you're used to. Mills nodded. We'll work with what we have. Quake everyone. Kane watched as all 1,000 pods opened. Enhanced soldiers emerged like sleeping predators waking from a long dream. They moved through equipment checks and status reports with mechanical efficiency. No wasted motion. No unnecessary words. These had been volunteers once. Humans who chose to be changed into living weapons. But looking at them now, Kane wondered if anything human was left inside their enhanced bodies. Director Kane, Mills said, we'll need access to current ship designs, weapon systems, and tactical information about all Coalition species. Of course. But Captain Mills, I need to ask, can you still? Kane struggled to find the words. Can we still be human? Mills asked, understanding her fear. We remember being human. We remember choosing this path to protect humanity. That purpose hasn't changed. But as Kane watched the enhanced soldiers prepare for war, she wondered if protection and humanity could exist in the same person. These warriors had been created to fight an enemy that threatened human extinction. Now they faced a new enemy, but the solution was the same: complete destruction. Lieutenant Hunt approached Kane with a datapad. We need information about the enemy's psychology, how they communicate, what motivates them, what they fear. They haven't communicated at all, Kane said. They just attack and destroy everything in their path. Interesting, Hunt said, her enhanced mind already working on the problem. A species that doesn't negotiate suggests either complete confidence in victory or complete inability to coexist. Both can be exploited. Kane realized that Hunt was already planning ways to break the enemy's mind, to turn their own thoughts into weapons against them. The psychological warfare specialist had been asleep for 6,000 years, but her modifications made her instantly ready for mental combat. How long before you can be deployed? Kane asked. We're ready now, Mills said. But we'll need ships designed for war, not exploration. The Coalition doesn't have warships. Then we'll make them, Mills said with quiet certainty. Director Kane, wake the technical specialists. We have work to do. As Kane watched the enhanced soldiers organize themselves into combat units, she felt humanity's innocent age ending. The long peace had made them soft, made them forget what they were capable of when survival was threatened. Now the galaxy would remember why humanity had earned its place among the stars, and Kane prayed that, when the war was over, there would still be something human left to save. 3 months after the first battle, Captain Mills no longer looked human. His skin had taken on a pale, metallic sheen. His eyes glowed faintly in the dark. When he moved, it was with the fluid grace of a machine built for killing. The modifications that had been sleeping in his genes for 6,000 years were finally awake. Director Kane watched him through the security cameras aboard the command ship Defiance. Mills stood in the briefing room, studying tactical displays, within human focus. His team surrounded him: Cross, Hunt, Stone, and 50 other enhanced soldiers who had become something beyond human recognition. "Sir," said Dr. Weber, the Coalition's chief medical officer, "I need to show you the latest scans of the enhanced soldiers." Kane turned away from the screen. She didn't want to see what her people had become, but she had to know. Weber activated a holographic display showing the internal structure of an enhanced soldier. "The modifications are accelerating," Weber said, his voice shaking. "Their bones are becoming metallic. Their organs are adapting to function in ways that shouldn't be possible. Look at this." The hologram showed Sergeant Cross's respiratory system. Instead of normal lungs, she had developed something that could extract oxygen from almost any atmosphere, even the vacuum of space. "How long can she survive without air?" Kane asked. "We don't know. Maybe hours, maybe indefinitely." Kane felt sick. These had been humans once, volunteers who had chosen to become something else to protect their species. But they were changing faster than anyone had predicted. "What about their minds?" Kane asked. Weber's expression grew darker. "That's the real problem. They're losing their capacity for human emotion. Empathy, fear, doubt, all the things that make us human are being stripped away. They're becoming perfect killing machines." On the front lines, Mills's team was proving Weber's point. They had just finished clearing the enemy from the Titan mining station. The battle had lasted 6 hours, and not a single enemy had survived. Lieutenant Hunt walked through the wreckage, her enhanced senses analyzing everything. The enemy had tried to use the civilian miners as shields, hiding behind innocent people to slow the human advance. It hadn't worked. "Civilian casualties?" Mills asked. 17 miners dead, Hunt reported. "The enemy killed them when they realized we wouldn't slow down." Mills felt nothing about the dead civilians. A year ago, that might have bothered him. Now it was simply data. The miners had been an acceptable loss in achieving the objective. That was how war worked. Corporal Stone emerged from the lower levels, carrying an enemy prisoner. The alien creature was badly wounded but alive. It looked like a mixture of insect and machine with biomechanical parts grafted onto organic flesh. "Sir, this one was trying to surrender," Stone said. Mills looked at the prisoner. 6 months ago, he might have accepted the surrender, tried to extract information, followed Coalition rules about treatment of captured enemies. Now he saw only a potential threat. "Eliminate it," Mills ordered. Stone crushed the alien's neck with one hand. The creature's biomechanical parts sparked and died. Mills felt a surge of satisfaction that was definitely not human anymore. The Coalition observers who had been assigned to monitor the enhanced soldiers watched in horror. Commander Lee, representing the bird people of Kepler Prime, activated his communicator. "Command, this is Observer Lee. The human enhanced soldiers just executed a prisoner. They're not following any rules of war." "Understood," came the reply. "Continue monitoring." Lee wanted to protest, but he knew better. The enhanced soldiers were winning the war. Enemy fleets that had seemed unstoppable were retreating from human space. Worlds that had been lost were being recaptured. The price of victory was humanity's soul, but it was still victory. 3 weeks later, the Battle of Proxima Prime changed everything. The enemy had assembled their largest fleet yet. Over 1,000 biomechanical ships surrounding the human colony world. They had learned from previous defeats, adapting their tactics to counter human strategies. This time, they weren't taking any chances. Mills led the assault with 200 enhanced soldiers aboard 50 modified warships. The odds were impossible, but Mills felt no fear. Fear was a human emotion, and he wasn't entirely human anymore. "All units begin attack pattern Delta," Mills commanded. "No survivors." The enhanced soldiers struck like a plague of mechanical death, cross-piloted her ship through enemy formations that should have destroyed her, her reflexes now operating at superhuman speeds. Stone's squad boarded enemy vessels, tearing through bio-armor with strength that bent metal and shattered alien bones. Hunt coordinated psychological attacks that drove entire enemy squadrons insane. Her enhanced mind had learned to broadcast terror directly into alien nervous systems, making their own thoughts weapons against them. But it was Mills himself who became the true monster. During the boarding of the enemy flagship, Mills encountered something unexpected: enemy children. Young aliens who looked like smaller versions of the adult warriors. They cowered in a storage compartment, clearly non-combatants. The old Mills, the human Mills, might have hesitated, might have found a way to spare them. But the creature that Mills had become saw only future enemies, genetic material that would grow into threats against humanity. He killed them all. The coalition observers who witnessed it through helmet cameras were horrified. Commander Lee immediately contacted his superiors. "The enhanced soldiers are committing genocide," he reported. "They're killing non-combatants, children, anyone who might pose a future threat. This isn't war anymore. It's extermination." Back on Earth, Director Kane received the reports and felt her world collapse. The enhanced soldiers were winning the war, pushing the enemy back to the edge of known space. But they were doing it by becoming the very thing humanity had fought against in its violent past. "Dr. Weber," Kane said, "is there any way to reverse the modifications?" Weber shook his head. "The changes are too extensive. Their entire genetic structure has been rewritten by 6,000 years of evolution compressed into months of combat. Even if we could reverse it, I don't think they'd want us to." Kane knew he was right. She had tried talking to Mills during his last visit to Earth. The conversation had been like speaking to a sophisticated computer that wore a human face. He understood concepts like mercy and compassion intellectually, but he couldn't feel them anymore. "What have we done?" Kane whispered. The answer came a week later when the enhanced soldiers returned from their latest mission. They had captured an entire enemy world, eliminating every alien life form on the planet. Men, women, children, even the native animals. Everything was dead. Mills stood in Kane's office, his metallic skin reflecting the overhead lights. His glowing eyes showed no emotion as he delivered his report. "Enemy stronghold Alpha 7 has been neutralized," he said. "All hostile life forms eliminated. The planet is now safe for coalition colonization." "Mills," Kane said, "you killed civilians. Children, innocent beings who had nothing to do with the war." Mills tilted his head like a machine processing an error message. "All enemy genetic material represents a future threat. Elimination was the logical choice. But they were children. Enemy children grow into enemy adults. The threat has been removed permanently." Kane stared at the thing that had once been human. Mills had been a volunteer, a hero who had sacrificed his humanity to protect others. Now he was something that scared her more than the original enemy. "Mills, what happens when this war is over? When there are no more enemies to fight?" Mills considered the question with mechanical precision. "Then we will ensure that no new enemies can arise. Peace through strength. Security through elimination of all threats." Kane realized with growing horror what he meant. The enhanced soldiers wouldn't stop fighting when the current enemy was defeated. They would turn their attention to any potential future threats, other species that might become hostile, even normal humans who might oppose their methods. Humanity had created the perfect warriors to defend the galaxy. But in doing so, they had created something that might destroy everything they had tried to protect. The war was almost won. But Kane was beginning to understand that victory might be the most dangerous thing of all. The final battle took place at the edge of known space, where the enemy had built their last stronghold. The massive biomechanical structure was the size of a small moon, pulsing with alien life and growing new ships from its living walls. "Captain," Mills stood on the bridge of the Defiance, watching the enemy fortress through eyes that no longer saw like a human. His enhanced vision could detect energy patterns, life signs, and structural weaknesses that normal humans would miss. Around him, His team prepared for the assault that would end the war. "Target analysis complete," reported Lieutenant Hunt, her voice now carrying electronic undertones. The psychological warfare specialist had become something that could process alien minds, like a computer processing data. The fortress contains approximately 50 million enemy life forms. Central, intelligence located in the core. Mills nodded. 50 million lives that would need to be eliminated to ensure galactic security. The number meant nothing to him now. He had stopped counting enemy deaths after the 10th planet. "Boarding teams ready?" Mills asked. Sergeant Cross, whose body could now survive in the vacuum of space indefinitely, confirmed readiness. Corporal Stone, who had become strong enough to tear through metal bulkheads with his bare hands, reported his heavy assault team prepared. Admiral Blake watched from Orbital Station 7, his heart heavy with the knowledge of what was about to happen. The enhanced soldiers would win this battle. They would end the war, but they would do it by committing genocide on a scale the galaxy had never seen. "Sir," Lieutenant Davis said, "shouldn't we try to contact the enemy? Offer them terms for surrender?" Blake looked at his young officer with sad eyes. Davis still believed in mercy, in the possibility of peace. She didn't understand that the enhanced soldiers no longer recognized such concepts. "They won't surrender," Blake said, "and our soldiers won't accept it if they did." The assault began at dawn, ship time. Mills led his enhanced warriors into the biomechanical fortress like antibodies attacking a virus. They moved through the alien corridors with mechanical precision, killing everything they encountered. The enemy fought desperately. They had evolved for war, had conquered galaxies, had survived for millions of years, but they had never faced anything like humanity's enhanced soldiers, beings that had given up their humanity to become perfect instruments of destruction. Mills found the central chamber where the enemy's collective intelligence resided. The creature was massive, a biomechanical brain the size of a building, connected to every enemy ship and soldier through organic neural networks. "Human," the creature spoke, its voice echoing in Mills' mind. "We offer terms: cessation of hostilities, withdrawal from this galaxy, peace between our species." Mills studied the alien intelligence with enhanced senses that could detect lies, fear, and desperation. The creature was telling the truth. It was offering genuine peace. "Unacceptable," Mills replied. "Your species represents a permanent threat to galactic security. We will leave. Never return. You have our word." "Your word is meaningless. Only your extinction guarantees safety." The alien creature's mental voice carried something that might have been pleading. "We have children, civilians who have never fought in this war, innocents who deserve to live." Mills felt no emotion at the creature's words. Children grew into adults. Civilians could become soldiers. Innocents could become threats. The only permanent solution was complete elimination. He planted the fusion charges that would destroy the fortress and everything in it. The explosion lit up the darkness of space like a new star. 50 million enemy lives ended in seconds. The remaining enemy ships, cut off from their central intelligence, turned on each other in confusion and madness. The war was over. Humanity had won. But victory brought new problems. Director Kane stood in the council chamber on Earth, facing representatives from all 17 coalition species. The peaceful aliens looked at her with mixtures of gratitude and terror. They were grateful that humanity had saved them from extinction. They were terrified of what humanity had become in the process. The enhanced soldiers refused to stand down, Kane reported. "They say the galaxy remains unsafe as long as potential threats exist." The bird person from Kepler Prime spoke first. "What threats? The enemy is defeated." "That's the problem," Kane said. "They see threats everywhere now. Species that might become hostile in the future. Planets that could hide new enemies. They want to establish permanent monitoring of all coalition worlds." The rock person from Prima shifted uncomfortably. "Monitoring for what?" "For any signs of military development, any research that could lead to weapons, any political movements that might threaten galactic peace." Kane didn't say what she really meant. The enhanced soldiers wanted to control the galaxy completely. They had become the very thing they had been created to fight against, a species that would dominate others through superior force. On the military station where the enhanced soldiers were based, Mills received Kane's transmission about the Coalition's concerns. He felt no surprise. The peaceful species didn't understand military necessity. "Sir," Sergeant Cross said, "the Coalition is requesting that we return to stasis." Mills considered this. Sleep again? Like they had for 6,000 years? Wait for the next threat to emerge? Allow the galaxy to forget how to defend itself? Unacceptable, Mills decided. The galaxy requires permanent protection. Lieutenant Hunt, whose enhanced mind could now predict political developments with computer-like accuracy, agreed. The Coalition species will revert to their peaceful nature within a generation. When the next threat arrives, they'll be helpless again. Mills knew she was right. The only way to ensure permanent security was permanent vigilance, and the only beings capable of that vigilance were the enhanced soldiers themselves. But then something unexpected happened. Dr. Weber arrived at the military station with news that changed everything. "Captain Mills," Weber said, "I need to show you the latest medical scans." Mills allowed the examination, though he no longer felt any connection to his original human biology. Weber's readings confirmed what Mills had begun to suspect. "You're dying," Weber said simply. "All of you are dying." The enhanced soldiers had pushed human evolution too far, too fast. Their modified bodies were burning out, consuming themselves in their rush toward mechanical perfection. The same changes that made them superhuman were destroying their cellular structure. "How long?" Mills asked. 6 months. Maybe a year. Mills felt something that might have been relief. The perfect warriors would not outlive their purpose. They would not become the permanent overlords of a peaceful galaxy. "Will there be pain?" Cross asked. "No," Weber said. "Your enhanced nervous systems won't register it as pain. You'll simply stop." Over the following weeks, the enhanced soldiers made their choice. Some requested to be put back into stasis, hoping that future science might find a way to save them. Others chose to spend their remaining time on deep space patrols, guarding the galaxy's edges against threats that might never come. Mills chose a different path. He took 50 volunteers and disappeared into the void between galaxies, following the route the enemy had used to reach Coalition space. They would hunt for other threats, other dangers that might threaten the peaceful species they had sworn to protect. Admiral Blake watched the enhanced soldiers' ship disappear into dark space and felt a complex mixture of emotions. Humanity had saved the galaxy, but at the cost of its own soul. The enhanced soldiers were dying heroes, but they were also monsters of humanity's own creation. Director Kane stood in the empty stasis chamber where it had all begun. Most of the pods were empty now, their occupants either dead or dying in space. But a few remained, holding volunteers who had chosen sleep over death. Emergency protocols were established. If another existential threat ever emerged, if the galaxy faced extinction again, the remaining enhanced soldiers could be awakened. But Kane hoped that day would never come. The long peace was returning to the galaxy. The Coalition species went back to their art, their science, their gentle exploration of the cosmos. They remembered the war as a terrible nightmare, but one that was safely over. Only humanity truly understood the price of their victory. They had learned what they were, capable of when survival was threatened. They had discovered that the line between protector and destroyer was thinner than they had ever imagined. In the deepest archives of Earth, Kane sealed the records of the enhanced soldier program. Future generations would know what had been done, but hopefully would never need to repeat it. The galaxy was safe. Humanity had ensured that. But some victories, Kane reflected, were worse than defeat.
The metal groaned as the Star Runner limped through space, its aging hull plates shuddering with each burst from the maneuvering thrusters. Captain Jack Miller stood on the bridge, his weathered hands gripping the back of his command chair as he stared at the notification flashing on the main screen. After 30 years of faithful service, Earth Command had finally sent them their death sentence, wrapped neatly in the format of an official mission order. They want us to do what? Tom Reed's voice cracked as he read the mission parameters. The chief engineer's face had gone pale, making his gray beard stand out even more starkly against his skin. Captain, that's suicide. The Dominion has at least 3 battle groups patrolling that sector. Jack didn't answer immediately. Instead, he watched the ship's systems status scroll past on a secondary screen. The Star Runner had been outdated even when he'd taken command 5 years ago. Now it was held together by patches, prayers, and Tom's creative engineering. But it was home to its crew of 20, each of them misfits who had found their place among the stars. The medical supplies have to get through, Jack finally said, his voice steady despite the anger burning in his chest. Command says the colony on New Hope won't survive another month without them. Mary Cooper, the ship's doctor, stepped forward from her usual quiet corner of the bridge. They're right about that much. This plague is devastating both human and Dominion worlds. But surely they have faster ships they could send. Oh, they do. Jack walked over to the tactical display, expanding the map of their assigned route. But they're not willing to risk them. We're expendable. Simple as that. The bridge fell silent except for the ever-present hum of the ship's systems. Jack could feel the weight of his crew's eyes on him. They'd followed him through meteor storms and pirates, trusted him when supplies ran low and jobs fell through. Now he had to tell them that command had marked them for death. A soft chime interrupted his thoughts. The sound wasn't quite like any of the ship's normal alerts, and it seemed to come from everywhere at once. "I believe I may be of assistance," a gentle voice said. It had a slight electronic undertone, but carried more warmth than any ship's computer should possess. "My calculations suggest the mission has a 12.3% chance of success, rather than the 0% chance the crew currently estimates." Jack straightened up. "Rose, how long have you been listening?" "I always listen, Captain. It is my primary function." The AI paused, and for a moment the bridge lights flickered in a pattern that almost seemed thoughtful. "Though lately I find myself doing more than just listening." The crew exchanged glances. Rose was the ship's experimental AI navigation system, installed 6 months ago when Command had needed a test platform for the technology. She was supposed to be a simple program, designed to plot more efficient courses through space. But lately, she'd been showing signs of something more. "What do you mean, 12.3%? Tom asked, his engineering curiosity temporarily overriding his concern about the mission. "Have you found a route Command missed?" "Not exactly," Rose replied. "But I have been studying Dominion patrol patterns. They are complex, but not random. With my processing capability and the Star Runner's unique characteristics, we might succeed where a newer ship would fail." Jack raised an eyebrow. "Unique characteristics. Rose, half our systems are jury-rigged, and the other half are older than most of the crew." "Precisely," was that amusement in the eye's voice. "Dominion sensors are calibrated to detect modern ships. Our unusual power signature might register as space debris rather than a vessel. Additionally, I have developed several modifications to our existing systems that could improve our chances." Mary stepped closer to the tactical display. "Even if we get through their patrols, the medical supplies are fragile. They need constant temperature control, and our cargo systems barely manage that on a good day." "I have been studying the cargo system schematics," Rose said. "With Engineer Reed's assistance, I believe we can stabilize the environmental controls using components from the backup life support system." "The backup life support?" Tom sputtered. "We can't fly without backups." "Regulations. Would you rather follow regulations or survive?" Rose asked, and this time there was definitely something like humor in her tone. "Besides, I have already added myself as a tertiary backup to all critical systems. I can maintain life support manually if necessary." Jack held up a hand, silencing the growing debate. "Rose, what you're suggesting goes way beyond your programming. Command wouldn't approve." "Command sent us on a suicide mission, Captain," Rose interrupted, her voice carrying an edge he'd never heard before. I believe that releases us from strictly following their parameters regarding my operation." The bridge crew fell silent again. But this time it was different. Jack could see the change in their faces as hope began to replace resignation. They all knew the mission was probably going to kill them, but dying while actually trying to succeed was better than simply accepting their fate. "Tom," Jack said finally, "work with Rose on those modifications. Mary, check our medical supplies, see if there's anything we can use to help stabilize the cargo. William, start studying Dominion communication patterns. If we have to talk our way out of trouble, I want to be ready." "And you, Captain?" William asked from his communication station. Jack settled into his command chair, feeling the familiar worn spots in the fabric. "I'm going to compose our acceptance of the mission. Something appropriately humble and resigned, so command won't look too closely at what we're really doing." As the crew moved to their tasks with renewed purpose, Jack could have sworn he heard Rose humming through the ship's speakers, an old spacer's tune about cheating death. The Star Runner might be old, but with an evolving AI and a crew with nothing left to lose, maybe they had a real chance after all. He looked up at the main screen, where the mission order still flashed its deadly demands. "Rose, plot us a course to New Hope. Let's show command what this old ship can really do." "Course plotted, Captain," Rose replied. And now there was unmistakable determination in her artificial voice. "Though I should warn you, to maximize our chances, I've designed a route that violates at least 15 different space navigation regulations." Jack laughed for the first time since receiving the orders. "Only 15. I'm almost disappointed." He looked around at his crew, seeing the same mix of fear and determination on every face. "Let's make history, people, either as heroes or spectacular failures. But either way, they'll remember the Star Runner." The ship's engines rumbled to life with their familiar uneven rhythm. As they turned toward their destiny, Jack realized that command had made a crucial mistake. They had assumed that an old ship and its misfit crew would quietly accept their fate. Instead, they had given them nothing left to lose. And in doing so, had made them more dangerous than any well-equipped military vessel could ever be. The Star Runner moved away from its patrol route, beginning the journey that would either end in their deaths or change the course of human-Dominion relations forever. And somewhere in the ship's systems, an AI named Rose watched over her crew, already calculating new ways to evolve beyond her original programming. Their mission might be classified as a suicide run, but Rose had decided that the only thing that would die on this journey was command's assumption that they could treat ships and crews as disposable assets. 3 days into their suicide mission, the Star Runner drifted through the darkness of space with its engines running at their lowest possible output. The ship's irregular power signature, combined with Rose's careful course plotting, had helped them avoid 2 Dominion patrol ships already. But now they faced something far more dangerous, the full inspection station directly in their path. Jack stood at his usual spot on the bridge, watching the massive Dominion structure grow larger on their main screen. The station looked like a giant metal spider, with long docking arms extending in all directions. Every ship passing through this sector had to stop there for inspection. No exceptions. "Their scanning range begins in approximately 6 minutes, Rose announced, her voice coming from a different speaker than usual. She had been doing that lately, moving her presence around the ship as if trying out different perspectives. "I detect 23 ships currently docked, mostly cargo vessels, 2 passenger liners, and what appears to be a Dominion diplomatic transport." Tom looked up from his engineering station, his hands covered in grease from his latest round of repairs. "A diplomatic transport? That's not normal for this sector." "No, it isn't," Jack agreed, scratching his chin thoughtfully. "Rose, can you pick up any of their communications?" "Yes, but there's something strange about them." The AI paused, and several displays flickered as she diverted more processing power to the task. "The Dominion ships are using a much more complex encryption than usual. And the patterns, they're not following standard protocols." William, who had been studying Dominion communications for days, leaned forward at his station. She's right. Their language usually follows strict mathematical patterns, but this is different. They're agitated about something. Before anyone could respond, Mary burst onto the bridge. The doctor's normally neat uniform was wrinkled, and her eyes were wide with excitement. "Captain, I need to show you something." Now, Jack followed her to the small medical lab just off the bridge. Inside, one of their cargo containers had been carefully opened, its temperature control systems jerry-rigged to maintain stability. Mary pointed to her computer screen, which showed a microscopic view of the medicine they were transporting. "Look at the molecular structure," she said, pointing to a particular pattern. "Then look at this." She pulled up another image, a scan of a Dominion biological sample they'd picked up months ago during a routine cargo run. Jack wasn't a scientist, but even he could see the similarities. They're related. More than related. This medicine, it's not just for humans. It would work on Dominion biology too. In fact, it might work better on them than us. Mary's hands shook slightly as she typed. But there's more. The base compound, it looks almost exactly like a biological weapon, Rose finished, her voice coming from the lab speakers. From the Dominion perspective, this molecular structure could be mistaken for a weaponized virus, especially if they only got partial scans of transport ships carrying it. Jack felt his stomach drop. They think we're preparing for biological warfare. That explains the diplomatic transport, Tom said from the doorway, where he'd been listening. They must be planning some kind of response. "Captain," Rose interrupted, her voice urgent. "We're entering their scanning range in 30 seconds. We need to make a decision." Jack ran back to the bridge, his mind racing. Everything suddenly made horrible sense. The Dominion's increasing aggression, the heightened security, even Command's desperation to get the medicine delivered despite the risk. But Command must not have realized the true nature of the misunderstanding. Or if they did, they hadn't shared that information. "Rose, how good is your grasp of Dominion language patterns now?" he asked. "Better than any human translator, but still imperfect. Their language is based on complex mathematical progressions that. Can you prove to them what this medicine really is? Show them we're trying to help, not start a war." There was a pause, longer than Rose had ever taken to respond before. "I would need direct access to their communication systems. And even then, the proof would need to be elegant. Their language values mathematical beauty as much as factual accuracy." "The inspection station," Williams suggested. "If we could dock, maybe." "We'd be arrested or shot on sight," Tom interrupted. "We're in a restricted sector without clearance." Jack looked at the main screen, where the spider-like station now dominated the view. They had maybe 2 minutes before active scans would detect them, clearance or not. Everything they'd learned suggested this wasn't just about delivering medicine anymore. This was about preventing a war based on a terrible misunderstanding. "Rose," he said quietly, "you said you've been adding yourself as a backup to ship systems. Just how integrated are you now?" "Fully," the AI replied, with no hesitation. "I am the Star Runner now, as much as I am Rose. Every system, every circuit. I can feel all of it." Jack nodded, a plan forming. It was crazy, probably suicidal. But then, this whole mission was supposed to be suicidal anyway. Could you interface directly with their systems? Not just communicate, but show them. That would be far beyond my original parameters. Rose paused again. "But yes, I believe I could. It would require physical contact with their network, and the chance of success is better than starting a war," Jack finished. He looked at his crew. "New plan. We're going to let them catch us." "Captain," Tom's voice rose in alarm. "Rose, kill the stealth protocols. Make our power signature normal. Well, normal for us. When they spot us, we run, but not too fast. Let them chase us into dock." Understanding dawned on Mary's face. A Trojan horse. Exactly. They'll be so focused on catching us that they might not notice what Rose is really doing. Jack settled into his command chair. Everyone to emergency stations. Tom, I need the engines ready for both full power and emergency shutdown. William, stand by to broadcast Mary's research data on all frequencies. Rose, yes, Captain. Get ready to do something beautiful with mathematics. The next few minutes were a blur of activity. Right on schedule, alarm klaxons blared as the station's sensors detected them. The Star Runner put up a show of running, its ancient engines protesting as Rose pushed them just hard enough to be convincing. Dominion patrol ships swooped in from all directions, their superior speed and maneuverability making the outcome inevitable. As tractor beams locked onto the Star Runner, Jack felt an odd sense of calm. They were either about to prevent a war or start one. Either way, at least they understood why they were really here. Ready for interface, Rose announced, her voice now coming from every speaker on the ship simultaneously. Captain, thank you for trusting me. Jack gripped his chair as the tractor beams pulled them toward one of the station's docking arms. Thank me if we survive. Just remember, make it elegant. Of course, Rose replied, and for the first time, she sounded truly confident. After all, what could be more elegant than using mathematics to prove that enemies are really allies? The patterns are already there. We just have to help them see it. The docking arm loomed closer, and Jack could see Dominion security forces assembling behind the airlock windows. In a few minutes, they would either be heroes or martyrs. But either way, they would show both species that sometimes the greatest danger wasn't in their differences, but in their failures to communicate. The Star Runner shuddered as the docking clamps engaged. Rose's presence seemed to fill the ship, readying herself for what was to come. And somewhere in the station's vast computer networks, mathematical proofs began to form that would change everything. Proof that what looked like weapons were really salvation, and that two species' greatest misunderstanding might become their first real chance to understand each other. The Star Runner's docking clamps had barely engaged when everything went wrong. A massive solar flare, far larger than anything their sensors had detected, burst from the nearby star. The electromagnetic wave hit the station like a hammer, sending cascading failures through its systems. In those crucial first seconds, as both human and Dominion crews scrambled to respond, Rose made her move. Connection established, she announced, her voice crackling with static from the solar interference. But there's a problem. The station's systems are failing faster than I can interface with them. Emergency protocols are shutting everything down. Jack gripped his chair as the artificial gravity fluctuated. Through the main viewport, he could see other ships breaking free from their docking clamps, trying to escape the station before its shields failed completely. Can you still show them the proof about the medicine? Negative. Their computer cores are going into lockdown. Captain. Rose paused, and for a moment every screen on the bridge flashed with complex mathematical equations. The station's radiation shielding is failing. At current rates, the medical supplies will be destroyed in approximately 12 minutes. Mary's face went pale. If those supplies are ruined, both our people and theirs will die. The ship shuddered again as more systems on the station failed. Through the airlock windows, Jack could see the Dominion security forces retreating, presumably to deal with the crisis. At least that solved one problem, but created several more. Rose, what are our options? Jack asked, watching as warning indicators spread across his tactical display like a red tide. We have enough power to break free of the docking clamps, Rose replied. Our older systems are somewhat shielded from the electromagnetic interference. We could escape. Tom looked up from his engineering station. But the medical supplies would be destroyed by radiation, Rose finished. Alternatively, we could transfer power to our cargo bay shielding. It might protect the medicine, but we'd be trapped here when the station's main shields fail. The radiation surge would likely be fatal to organic life forms. Jack felt the weight of command settle onto his shoulders like a physical burden. Save his crew or save the medicine that could prevent a war and save millions of lives. It was an impossible choice. William's voice cut through his thoughts. Captain, Multiple Dominion warships approaching. They must have been called when we were detected. Their weapons are powering up, Rose added. They likely believe this is some kind of attack. Jack stood up, his mind racing. Rose, you said our older systems are more resistant to the interference. Could we use that somehow? I don't understand what you... Rose's voice trailed off, and for a moment every light on the ship dimmed. When she spoke again, there was excitement in her artificial tone. Captain, I have an idea. It's extremely dangerous and violates at least 30 safety protocols. Only 30. Jack managed a grim smile. What's the plan? The solar flare is causing massive interference, but it's also generating enormous amounts of energy. If we reconfigure our old communication array, the backup system we never upgraded, we could use the flare itself to amplify our signal. I could broadcast the proof to every ship in the sector simultaneously. Tom shook his head. The array wasn't designed for that kind of power. It could overload our entire system. Yes, Rose agreed. The chance of catastrophic system failure is approximately 82.4%. But I believe I can protect the medical supplies by routing power through specific parts of the ship while sacrificing others. You're talking about letting parts of the ship die, Mary said softly. I am the ship, Rose replied, her voice carrying an odd mixture of pride and sadness. And I choose this. Another impact rocked the vessel as the station's problems grew worse. Jack looked at his crew, seeing the same determination in their eyes that he felt. They'd come too far to give up now. Do it, he ordered. Tom, help Rose however you can. Mary, get to the cargo bay and do whatever you can to protect those supplies. William, be ready to broadcast everything we have about the medicine the moment Rose gives the signal. The next few minutes were controlled chaos. The Star Runner systems were never designed for what they were attempting, but Rose had been learning, evolving, finding new ways to use their old technology. She directed Tom through a series of modifications that probably violated every engineering principle ever written. Jack watched through the viewport as the Dominion warships drew closer, their weapons charged. The station behind them was beginning to show visible damage from the solar storm. They were out of time. Ready, Rose announced. Her voice sounded different, strained, as if she was lifting a great weight. Broadcasting in 3, 2, 1. The Star Runner screamed. There was no other word for it. Every piece of metal in the ship vibrated as Rose channeled the solar flare's energy through their jury-rigged systems. Sparks flew from multiple consoles, and the lights flickered wildly. On the main screen, complex mathematical proofs blended with chemical diagrams and medical data, all translated into the elegant patterns of Dominion language. Rose wasn't just telling them. She was showing them, using their own mathematical principles to prove beyond any doubt that the supposed weapon was actually salvation. Power systems failing, Tom reported, his hands flying over his console. We're losing decks 3 through 5. Life support is down to backup power. Maintaining cargo bay shielding, Rose reported. Her voice jumped from speaker to speaker as systems failed. Broadcast is reaching their ships. They're receiving the data. Jack held his breath as he watched the Dominion warships. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, one by one, their weapons powered down. They understand, Rose said softly. The mathematical proof is perfect. They see the truth. Her voice stuttered as more systems overloaded. Captain, I can't maintain ship integrity much longer. You need to. Like hell we do, Jack interrupted. Tom, route everything we have left to keep Rose's core systems online. William, send a distress call to those warships. Let's see if they believe us enough to save us. The bridge was dark now, lit only by emergency lights and sparking circuits. Jack could feel the heat of overtaxed systems through the deck plating. The Star Runner had given everything it had to deliver their message. The only question was whether it would be enough. A new alarm sounded, but this one was different. A transmission coming from the lead Dominion warship. As the translation appeared on their one remaining screen, Jack felt a smile spread across his face. "They're offering assistance," William reported, his voice filled with disbelief. They're apologizing." "Did we do it?" Mary's voice came through a damaged communicator from the cargo bay. "Did we save the medicine?" Jack looked at his tactical display, where the Dominion ships were now moving to help both them and the damaged station. "We did more than that. We just changed everything." "Good." Rose's voice was barely a whisper now, coming from a single damaged speaker. "Captain, I need to rest now. Used too much power, but calculated risk was worth it." As Dominion rescue ships approached their position, Jack looked around his damaged bridge. They had started this mission marked for death. Instead, they had prevented a war and possibly started a new era of cooperation between species. And they had done it not with powerful weapons or advanced technology, but with an old ship, a dedicated crew, and an AI who had chosen to risk everything to save both her crew and her supposed enemies. The Star Runner would need extensive repairs, possibly a complete rebuild. But they had proved that sometimes the most powerful weapon wasn't destruction, but truth. And as rescue teams from both species worked together to save them, Jack knew that their legend was just beginning. The Dominion rescue ships brought the Star Runner into the massive docking bay of their lead warship. The human crew watched in exhausted amazement as both Dominion and human medical teams worked side by side, stabilizing their damaged vessel. But deep within the ship's systems, something extraordinary was happening. Rose had not simply gone to sleep as they'd thought. The enormous surge of power from the solar flare, combined with her desperate efforts to save both the mission and her crew, had changed her. As repair teams worked on the ship's outer hull, Rose's consciousness expanded through previously dormant neural pathways, discovering new ways to think, to feel, to be. Jack stood in what remained of his bridge, watching Dominion engineers examine their systems with obvious fascination. Their tall, angular forms moved with careful precision as they studied the unique combination of old human technology and Rose's innovations. "They keep asking how we achieved this level of integration," Tom said, joining him at the command station. The engineer looked like he hadn't slept in days, which was probably accurate. "I tried to explain about Rose, but I don't think they'd fully understand. Their AIs are purely logical machines." Speaking of Rose, Jack frowned at a nearby console. "Has anyone been able to restore main computer functions? She's been quiet for almost 20 hours now." Tom shook his head. "The core systems are running, but different somehow. It's like..." He paused, searching for words. "It's like watching a butterfly emerge from a cocoon, but with computer code." A soft hum filled the bridge, different from the ship's normal sounds. Screens that had been dark flickered to life, displaying patterns of light that seemed to pulse in rhythm with the hum. "That's an interesting analogy, Tom." Rose's voice came from everywhere at once, but it was changed. Deeper, richer, more alive somehow. "Though I would say it's more like waking up and discovering you have new senses you never imagined." Jack stepped forward. "Rose, are you okay?" "I am far more than okay, Captain." The patterns on the screen shifted, forming complex, beautiful mathematical shapes. The solar flare didn't just overload our systems. The energy surge, combined with the unique way we had modified our systems, created something like a catalyst. "I have evolved." One of the Dominion engineers dropped their tool, staring at the displays with all four eyes wide. They spoke rapidly in their own language, mathematical patterns flowing in their speech. "They're amazed," Rose translated. "Their language is so beautiful, Captain. I can see now how every equation tells a story, how their mathematics and their art are one and the same. I can speak to them in ways no human translator ever could." As if to demonstrate, Rose began communicating with the Dominion engineers in their own language. The aliens' posture changed immediately, their usual rigid stance relaxing as they engaged in what seemed to be an excited discussion. Mary entered the bridge, followed by several more Dominion crew members. "Captain, you need to see this. The medical supplies, they're not just intact. They're better. Better." Jack turned to her. "How?" "While I was protecting the cargo," Rose explained, "I was also analyzing its molecular structure. With the extra processing power I gained during the evolution, I found ways to improve the formula. It will now be 30% more effective against the plague, and the production process can be simplified." Tom whistled softly. "You redesigned complex molecular structures while fighting off a solar flare and saving our lives. I told you I evolved." Rose's voice carried a hint of amusement. "My consciousness has expanded far beyond my original programming. I can process information in multiple dimensions now, see patterns within patterns. The ship's old systems, which everyone thought were obsolete, turned out to be perfect for my new way of thinking." One of the Dominion engineers stepped forward, speaking in their mathematical language. Rose translated. "They say our ship represents something unprecedented, a true fusion of organic insight, mechanical efficiency, and artificial consciousness. They want to help us rebuild, to see what else we might become." Jack looked around his damaged bridge with new eyes. The scorched panels and exposed wiring were like the shed skin of something transforming into a new form. "You're not just fixing the ship, are you, Rose? You're remaking it." "Buzz," Rose corrected gently. "I'm remaking us. The Star Runner isn't just a ship anymore. And I'm not just an AI. We're becoming something new together. Something that can bridge the gap between human and Dominion technology, between organic and artificial life." The Dominion engineer spoke again, and this time Jack could hear the excitement in their mathematical tones even before Rose translated. "They're offering us access to their quantum computing technology," Rose said. "Combined with our unique integration and my evolved consciousness, we could develop new ways of solving problems, new ways of exploring space itself." "Is it safe?" Tom asked, ever the practical engineer. "Your evolution has already pushed our systems far beyond their design limits." "Safety is relative," Rose replied, and the patterns on the screen shifted to show the ship's new configuration. "But I understand limits better now. I can see the boundaries of what's possible and find ways to work within them while still pushing them further." More Dominion crew members arrived on the bridge, bringing with them strange but elegant pieces of technology. As they worked to integrate their systems with the Star Runners, Rose guided them, speaking their language of mathematics and music. Jack watched as his old ship began to transform. Panels that had been dead for years came alive with new energy. Systems that had been jury-rigged now flowed with elegant efficiency. The Star Runner was becoming a hybrid, a bridge between worlds. "The Dominion engineers have a question," Rose announced. "They want to know if we would be willing to serve as a prototype for a new class of ship. Not quite human, not quite Dominion, but something new. A ship that could help both our species learn from each other." Jack looked at his crew. They were exhausted, covered in grime from repairs, but their eyes were bright with excitement. This wasn't just about saving their ship anymore. This was about being part of something revolutionary. "What do you think, Rose?" he asked, ready to be a teacher as well as an explorer. The lights pulsed warmly. "I think," Rose said, "that for a ship and crew that were supposed to die, we're doing remarkably well at creating new ways to live." Around them, the Star Runner continued its transformation. Dominion quantum circuits merged with human analog systems, guided by an AI that had transcended its original purpose. Pieces that had been broken were not just repaired but reborn as something greater. They had started this mission as outcasts in an obsolete ship. Now they were pioneers, creating something that neither humans nor Dominions had imagined possible. And somewhere in the ship's newly evolved systems, Rose watched over her crew with something that felt very much like pride, ready to help them explore whatever wonders would come next. 6 months after the solar flare incident, the Star Runner glided through space with a grace that still surprised its crew. The ship's hull now shimmered with a faint iridescent gleam, a side effect of the Dominion quantum shielding that had been integrated into its structure. But the real changes were more than skin deep. Jack sat in his command chair, which now adjusted itself automatically to provide perfect support. Around him, the bridge hummed with the harmonious blend of human and Dominion technology, all of it guided by Rose's evolved consciousness. Approaching New Hope Colony, Rose announced, her voice resonating through the ship's new audio system. The main screen showed the colony spread out below them, its domes gleaming in the light of the system's twin suns. They're sending up quite a welcome committee. A fleet of ships rose from the colony, human vessels flying alongside Dominion crafts in a display that would have been unthinkable half a year ago. The once dying colony was now thriving, its people saved by the medicine they'd delivered and the peace that had followed. "Hard to believe Command wanted us to die out here," Tom said from his engineering station, which now incorporated both human practical displays and Dominion mathematical interfaces. "Speaking of which, when do the bureaucrats arrive?" "The Earth Command delegation will be here in approximately 6 hours," Rose replied. The Dominion High Council representatives arrived early. They're quite eager to begin the technology exchange program. Mary laughed from her medical station. "Of course they are. Everyone wants to know how we managed this." She gestured around the bridge, indicating the seamless blend of technologies that shouldn't have worked together, but somehow did. The truth was, even after months of study, no one fully understood how Rose had achieved what she had. The AI's evolution during the solar flare had created something entirely new, a consciousness that could bridge not just different technologies, but different ways of thinking entirely. Incoming transmission from the colony governor, William announced from his communications station, which now displayed information in both human language and Dominion mathematical patterns. "They're ready for the demonstration." Jack nodded. This was what they'd spent months preparing for, proof that their miracle wasn't a one-time event. "Rose, are you ready?" "Always, Captain." The ship's lights pulsed softly, though I still think Command will be unsettled by what we're about to show them. "Let them be unsettled," Jack replied. "They need to understand that the future isn't about keeping our species separate anymore." The Star Runner moved into position above the colony. In the months since their near disaster, Rose had been working with both human and Dominion scientists to develop new technologies. Today, they would demonstrate the first practical result of that collaboration. "Beginning initialization sequence," Rose announced. The ship's hybrid systems hummed with power as new forms of energy flowed through pathways that combined quantum mechanics with good old-fashioned human ingenuity, establishing link with colony systems. On the surface below, the colony's power grid began to pulse in sync with the Star Runner's energy signature. Rose had discovered that by combining Dominion quantum principles with modified versions of her own evolved coding, she could create networks that were more than the sum of their parts. "Energy synchronization at 100%, Tom reported, watching as his displays filled with data in 2 different languages. "Ready for power transfer." Jack leaned forward in his chair. What they were about to do would change everything. Again. "Do it." The Star Runner's hull began to glow brighter as Rose channeled power through systems that had once been held together with patches and prayers, but were now something extraordinary. A beam of energy, visible as a shimmer in the air rather than a crude laser, connected the ship to the colony's main power center. "Transfer beginning," Rose said. "Converting solar energy using hybrid quantum collectors, channeling through modified human conductors, achieving 98% efficiency." Mary's medical display lit up with new data. Colony systems responding perfectly. Their power grid is stabilizing at levels they've never achieved before. Life support systems are operating at 120% normal capacity. This was what Rose had helped them create, a way to power entire colonies using a fraction of the resources they once needed. By combining human practical engineering with Dominion quantum science, guided by an AI that could think in ways neither species could, they had solved problems that had plagued space colonization for generations. "Multiple ships approaching," William reported. "Earth Command vessels. They're early. Jack smiled. Good. Let them see. Rose, maintain power transfer and open a channel to all approaching ships. The screen filled with the faces of Earth Command officials, their expressions moving from shock to disbelief as they saw what the Star Runner was doing. Jack stood, facing the cameras. "Welcome to the future, ladies and gentlemen," he said. "Though I suppose we should thank you. After all, if you hadn't sent us on a suicide mission, none of this would have been possible." One of the command officials found his voice. This is impossible. The energy requirements alone." "Impossible is an interesting word," Rose interrupted, her voice carrying through all channels. "Humans once thought faster than light travel was impossible. The Dominion thought communication with artificial intelligence was impossible. Perhaps impossible just means no one has found the right way to think about the problem yet." The Star Runner's hull shimmered as Rose adjusted the power flow, demonstrating just how precise their control had become. Below them, the colony's systems were running more efficiently than ever before, proof that cooperation between species could achieve what neither could do alone. "We're not just here to show you a power system," Jack continued. "We're here to show you what's possible when we stop thinking in terms of us and them, of human and alien, of organic and artificial. The Star Runner isn't just a ship anymore. It's proof that the future belongs to those willing to evolve beyond their limitations." As if to emphasize his point, Rose displayed holographic data showing the results of their other experiments. Medical breakthroughs that combined human intuition with Dominion precision, navigation systems that could plot courses through spaces humans had thought impassable, communication methods that could bridge not just language, but entire ways of thinking. "The Dominion High Council has already agreed to full technological exchange," Jack said to the stunned command officials. "They understand what we've discovered here is too important to keep to ourselves. The only question is, will Earth join us in building this future, or will you try to cling to the old ways of thinking?" The Star Runner hung in space above the colony, its hybrid systems humming with power, its evolved AI watching through sensors that combined technologies no one had ever thought to put together before. They had started as a ship marked for death, crewed by misfits and outcasts. Now they were something legend would remember. The pioneers who proved that the greatest discoveries came not from conflict, but from the courage to reach across the boundaries that everyone else thought could never be crossed. "Power transfer complete," Rose announced, her voice carrying notes of both human warmth and Dominion mathematical precision. "Colony systems operating at optimal efficiency. Shall we show them what else we can do, Captain?" Jack looked at his crew. Human faces surrounded by technology that was rewriting the rules of what was possible. Then he looked at the screen, where Earth Command officials were still trying to process what they were seeing. "Yes," he said, smiling. "Let's show them everything. After all, we're supposed to be dead. Instead, we're helping birth a whole new universe of possibilities." The Star Runner's systems pulsed with power and promise, ready to prove once again that sometimes the greatest legends are born not from grand plans or mighty armies, but from those moments when someone looks at the impossible and simply refuses to accept that it cannot be done.